On this week's full-time roundup, City keep pace with Liverpool, Bayer Leverkusen put a hand on the Bundesliga title, Real Madrid opened the door slightly, and we preface the
Artlist.io.
full-time roundup starts. Welcome in, everybody. It is a special episode, if I think so. It is episode numero 50. 50. Me and Matt have been doing this for 50 episodes now.
God help us all.
God help us all. That is correct. We are, especially chipper on this Sunday afternoon. It is a beautiful day in Charlotte, North Carolina, around 70, 65 degrees right now. Can't beat it. And it's been also a wonderful weekend of football. Matt, I know we've both been busy this weekend, but how are you doing?
Doing well. Of course, we were supposed to have seen each other last night. We do not seem to get that timing right. But yeah, it's been a busy weekend of football. I started my weekend here locally on Friday, and I know, we were watching some Charlotte last night, and then wrap things up with European football, of course, sprinkled in, and today wrapping things up around the league. So 70 degrees, all the windows are open here at my place. It's nice, getting some fresh air. It's good. It's a good time to be in the Queen City.
That is a good point with the windows. I'm going to have to do that myself after this. But to expand on what Matt was saying, for the last 2 weekends in a row, we have supposed to be at the same place at the same time, and I missed Matt by like 5 minutes each time. Last week, it was because he was shooting photography. Didn't realize he was going to go to the stadium early. That's on me. This one was a whole ordeal with some lost credit cards. That was not my fault in all this, but no one cares about our lives.
That is true.
They
Especially the lost credit cards part. We can move on from that.
They care about the football. That's not very nice. And we're going to jump into the Premier League first. And we're going to start out with Liverpool winning yet again, this time in the 99th minute. I believe this was the latest Premier League goal ever. And it is by who else? Darwin Nunez. A hater of Matt, by the way.
He hates me. I don't have any. I didn't know that. I appreciate that he knows that
I let him know that you're a hater. But this game, for a 0-0 for almost the entire game, it was a pretty interesting watch. I thought both teams had a ton of chances, and both, lacked that cutting edge until, the very end. Forest should definitely feel hard done by after this match, 100%. Just a couple other storylines: Szoboszlai, Endo, and Nunez were back on the bench. All of them appeared in the game as substitutes. So, Matt, how long do you think this magical run that Liverpool is currently on can last?
We have a game in, I believe it's 2 weeks. So we'll find out then. Not even next week. Yeah, next Sunday, I think, actually. Yeah. So we'll find out. I think the run ends next week. We'll get into that in a minute. But this was a really interesting game. You mentioned Forest being hard done. I think, that's 2 weeks in a row where they've played pretty well, and they haven't gotten a result out of it. So, I think also on top of that, last week, they didn't play that great against Aston Villa, but they've had moments in this instance where they've played well and they haven't gotten results. And so I think the league was pretty happy to give Jurgen Klopp as much time as needed to get a goal here on this one. And of course, keep that contest going with the title race. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, next week, the big one on Sunday. If you haven't blocked your calendars off and you're a Premier League fan, Anfield is going to be absolutely rocking when Manchester City comes to town. And so that's going to be the ultimate game. We've touched on it a couple episodes now, Daniel, that's going to kind of be the first of the tone-setting games for Manchester City. They, of course, will have Arsenal at the end of this month as well. So that's going to be, the first leg, like I said, and could be the end of the run for Liverpool. I wouldn't say maybe a loss takes them completely out of it, but I think once you feel that momentum kind of change and City takes advantage of it, that could be a big week. But this game versus Forest was just as important. Could have been a trap game looking ahead to that, of course, and they take care of business. You mentioned some of the players that were still out, and so it's a big opportunity for some other players to come in and get a chance to rotate the squad, which they've been able to do. And they beat Southampton midweek, and they win here against Forest. Of course, they have Prague on Thursday in the Europa League. So another chance to kind of get some rotation for some of these youngsters and some more opportunity to get them a little bit more experience as they go into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I knew you were going to throw that BS in with the 99th minute. Just to explain this, and I did explain this to you, and you still did this, but Danilo and another player, Morgan Gibbs-White, were both booked for time wasting, and there was a head injury / VAR check in the first part of the stoppage time. So that is why it went to 2 minutes later. Just to explain, it wasn't because anything Liverpool did. It was because of the Forest players did to themselves. So just want to get that out in the open. But I guess it's okay to have the discussion. Now, we mentioned City a lot. They had the Manchester Derby today. Played for the second time this season. Now have won both by a combined scoreline of 5. And they kind of traded wonder goals. First, it was the Rashford hit, just an absolute banger. Then Phil Foden said, you know what, hold my beer. Weak foot, if he even has a weak foot, and hits it top cheese as well. So I couldn't believe first that City went down to start this match out. And it took them a while to get up to speed to get that first one in. It took a moment of magic. And then it was 1-1 for a while. And then United was just playing a very low block. And it seemed like City, in my opinion at least, struggled to break them down. Obviously, the goals with an S came. But it was a pretty interesting game to watch at least. And maybe Liverpool has a little bit of a blueprint here and there on some of City's weaknesses that they can kind of pounce on if they, are going to beat City next week.
I'd be very concerned if I'm Liverpool. I saw this game a little differently than you did, I think. Of course, Manchester City were absolutely all over United right out of the jump. Chance, 2 minutes in almost to open the scoring. Of course, Erling Haaland missed a couple opportunities that were just
the sitter was bad.
The sitter was really bad. And it would have changed the entire complexion of the game, right? Of course, if Manchester City score first, the way that Manchester United wanted to play this game was to sit in that low block and counterattack, which is what they did for the goal. Very direct out of the back from Onana, and then Bruno Fernandes takes the ball as he receives it middle of the field, moves up pitch a little bit, and then drops it off almost like a drop pass in hockey, if you will, from out double through the neutral zone, drop pass to Rashford, who hits an absolute worldie, and that was exactly what you wanted if you're a United fan and a United player. Or Eric Ten Hag, just the way the game started. But like I said, though, this was absolute domination from start to finish. And if Manchester City had put a goal in early, it changes the entire way that Manchester United has to play the game. They have to come out, at least at some point they would have to come out and be a little bit more aggressive. And then there's your opportunity for City to counter. And of course, push the high line up and Haaland can play in behind. That would have changed things considerably. They do kind of get, an equalizer, which is a wonder goal as well. Some question about whether Kyle Walker makes a inadvertent interference on that goal.
Can we get into that? What do you think?
I honestly didn't see it. So I'm not really the one to be asking about. I was kind of walking around and doing stuff around the place, and John Champion on Peacock coverage here in the States absolutely just enthralled me with his call of the goal. So I immediately looked up and saw what a wonder goal it was. But I didn't see the Kyle Walker situation, so I don't have anything to say on it. But
it was one of those when you're kind of grappling the other player as you're running together. I think that Rashford went down very easily. And look, I don't want any of these teams to win. So this is a completely unbiased take from me. That's just it's the Premier League. It's a physical league. It's a contact sport, it is. And so, I don't think he pulled him back. I think they were just running together. I mean, there were a few times where I thought a foul could have been called in the game. That was not one of them. So I was okay with the advantage there. But, I feel like some people might disagree, but that was just my interpretation of the rules and kind of how the game was being played out.
You say that you were not rooting for either team to win. That is somewhat false, as there was some pretty back and forth in our group text this morning about whether or not Daniel wanted Manchester City or Manchester United to win. I'm just going to throw this out there for the listeners. Please, if you are a Liverpool fan, feel free to just teach Daniel who the most hated team in your existence is, and whether or not you would feel comfortable rooting for them at any given point in time. Of course, Daniel has mentioned to us that he would prefer to be a winner, and therefore he rooted for Manchester United today so that City would drop points. I will leave that on the floor for everybody else to decide, but that's where he stood on it.
I just couldn't believe this. Who would you say? I just think that's loser talk. All right. I can hate Manchester United for 364 days out of the year, but this was a huge game before we play them. We need Manchester City to drop points. So whoever plays Manchester City, it could be Everton, it could be Manchester United, it could be anyone. I do not care. I'm going to pull for that team to make Manchester City lose. That is loser talk. I have my eyes on the trophy, Matt, not mid-table. I have my eyes on the trophy. And so I'm going to pull for whoever I have to pull for every single week against Manchester City. That is just how it's done. That's how it's done.
Real winner talk would want them to win every week, and then when you play them head to head, that's when you win. And
no,
I'm just saying,
that's stupid. That's very stupid.
I'm just saying.
Who's your rival? Who's your rival?
Well, Spurs is our biggest rival.
Okay. So,
and I would like the stadium to implode anytime that they're playing someone. So
sure. But if you're all right, say they're playing Manchester City, and you are 1 point behind Manchester City, but you just you're going to play a cupcake game tomorrow, and Spurs play Manchester City. You're still going to choose or pull for City? Is that what you're?
I would choose for the stadium to implode. I would choose for neither.
Just nuke.
I would root for nuke. I would go Bane. I would go full Bane style and just say, hope that happens. And I would root for neither team because I hate both teams. Not that I hate City. There's no reason to, other than that they're just really good. But yeah, I could never say I'm going to support Spurs. Period. End of story.
That's petty.
That's rivalry.
We've learned a lot about Matt today. We've learned a lot about me today.
That's called rivalry.
Okay, that's rivalry. All right, but we can move on. But we wanted to at least discuss that real quick. But yeah, it was a good game. I mean, the inevitable happened. We both called it. We both were texting each other. Look, it's going to happen. Haaland definitely should have had them level by halftime anyways. It was, I mean, especially when Johnny Evans was subbed for the 18-year-old academy kid. That's just kind of when most people, I would say, knew that it was going to happen. It happened. And, now they're 1 point back from Liverpool. So great game.
Great game. And I think the one thing that really stands out to me is just how far away Manchester United are, right? And I do, they're just so distant to the top three. And you can almost even say the top four, just given where they are in the standings. But the way that City played, you never felt like Manchester United was going to win this game. Like I said, it started, I would love to hear it. And I think I know the stat, but it was from the start. Like I said, they were on top of them. And then you mentioned kind of the subs. They brought off Rashford at 1-1, and you felt like they were kind of going to be conceding and wanting to get the draw versus, ever trying to get that one other opportunity to go and maybe get a counterattack or a free kick, that happens. And so to me, it felt like Erik ten Hag was more than pleased to get a 1-1 draw. Manchester United hadn't lost a game in 9 years after going into halftime. With a lead. So, you feel pretty comfortable if you're Ten Hag, but you're playing against Manchester City at home. To think that you could sit in a block for 45 minutes and not give up one is a little bit naive in my opinion. And to the way that they approach this game, I think again, just is a testament to just how far that Manchester United needs to improve top to bottom. And there have been rumblings that we've heard recently about Ineos is not too comfortable with Erik ten Hag, even given the results of late. And so, I do think you're going to see a pretty big shift from, all throughout the club pretty soon.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw that Cesc Fabregas comment before the weekend about how he doesn't see a direction with Ten Hag's philosophy here. So that's an interesting video to go watch if you haven't already. But my first stat was Manchester City had more shots in this game than Manchester United had possession. That was 27 shots to 26% possession. That's a stat for you. I know you'll like that. And number two, I had a little gripe about how Pep sets up his wingers. We saw Grealish come in and for like 100 million, and he doesn't really take players on as much as many people would like him to. I think the same is starting to happen to Doku. I mean, he's a lightning in a bottle. I feel like he could break that low block easily with his pace and skill, and he just refused to today. And you'll see Phil Foden on the other side. He created that goal because he took guys on. He was constantly going at defenders. That's a small gripe, a very small gripe, and it might just be how they were set up today. But I would just like to see Jeremy Doku in these kind of matches just go at their man constantly.
And I mean, I'd love to get tactical for just a second. I know we don't normally get that way on this show too much, but to your point, I mean, Manchester United never let Doku get one-on-one with Delo. They always had a man come over and bring, either Garnacho was supposed to be, as that was his side. And if he didn't, Bruno Fernandes came over and double teamed. And so, yes, you would love to see him go take on a winger or a defender by himself one-on-one. There were instances when he did it, and he certainly got the better of Delo. And again, you could see how hesitant or how nervous he was, and telling Garnacho, I need your help. I need you to come back. And then, they flipped the wingers in the second half when they brought on Alvarez, and Foden went on the left-hand side. Of course, with the injury and taking out Johnny Evans, they also flipped the low. So you had a youngster against Phil Foden, and he felt like he was a little outnumbered and felt a little bit out of place. He kind of came in a little tighter to the center backs just to have some support there. And Phil Foden had plenty of room to run on the left-hand side and took full advantage of it. Now, also the other thing about Phil Foden, you don't know where he plays. He doesn't have a true position under Pep. He's that good.
He really just drifts
around. He drifts and floats, and he's in the right place at the right time. And so I totally hear you on Doku. Of course, Jack Grealish pulled up with an injury midweek, and so it seems like Doku's really your only option over there. But he scares the living crap out of defenders with his speed and his pace. And so, yes, he gets the benefit of the doubt. And if you see more teams do what Manchester United did today, I guarantee you Pep Guardiola will find a way to make Doku effective and have success going forward. I mean, he's almost tempting teams to do that, because then there's an extra man that's wide open, and you don't want to do that against Manchester City.
Can't agree more. Now, we can't, not include Arsenal in the title talk. They play tomorrow against Sheffield. So, keep your eye on that. It is at Sheffield, so that might be a small little wrinkle in how Arsenal play and how that game could take place. But more than likely, we will probably see a fairly large score line there in Arsenal's favor.
I did take Sheffield in my underdogs bets, so probably going to win for Arsenal, but I took them as a chance.
You're a good guy, Matt. You're a good guy. But we wanted to pivot not to the title race, but to European football. And so kind of going off that, Villa win in an absolute thrilling game to Luton Town here. And there's just one thing I wanted to say. I'm going to miss Luton if they go down, because their games at home are the best watches in the entire Premier League. It's goals galore. They always have a shot. Sometimes they take a lead. Sometimes they have a big lead that they come back from. And this game kind of had it all, as it was a 5-goal thriller.
I do agree with you that it would be sad to see them go down. I don't think they go down. The way that they play, and you said it, at home, they have that style that they want to play. Of course, they're 4 points, behind Nottingham Forest right now, who continue to struggle. Given who they're playing and what they have to do. They have a game in hand on Forest, so that game could be a 1-point gap there. And then again, we've talked about it, the way that they play at home, and they have a lot of games at home still to go, Daniel. I mean, they play Forest at home on March 16th, which is a huge 6-pointer in the way that things are shaping up right now. They'll play Bournemouth at home. They'll play Brentford at home. They'll play Everton and Fulham at home. I mean, the way that the schedule is lining up, they're all winnable matches, or at least they can get points. And those are against teams that they need to beat or get points against, in the race. So I don't think that they're out quite yet. On the flip side, though, Villa have been much better after a really poor stretch of games that we talked about. And Unai Emery has found a way to kind of get this team settled now, pretty comfortable in the 4th spot, 5 points clear of Spurs, although Spurs have a game in hand. But it does feel like Villa's found a way to kind of settle and right the ship now. There's 3 wins in a row. And so they kind of feel like they found their groove back, and no European football. And one thing I do want to talk about later on is just you really see the impacts of teams that aren't used to having European football as part of their schedule, and it does take a huge toll on them. You're looking at teams like Newcastle this year. Villa had a run. We can talk about LaLiga and Real Sociedad. What happened to that? It takes a really big toll on some teams, and if you're not used to it, it can set you back. And luckily, Unai Emery was able to flip the switch pretty quick and get Villa back and ready to go.
Without a doubt. And they also rested players in this match and still won. Moussa Diaby came off the bench. A couple other players did as well. But one player I wanted to talk about just real quick, Ollie Watkins. He's now at 26 goal contributions for the season. Definitely his best season so far in his career. He has 5 goals in 3 games. So pretty dang good for that. And, I think there will start to be more and more talks about, is he going to be on the plane to Euros? Is he going to try to go move to a team like Arsenal? Stuff like that. So he is in frightening form. We kind of talked about last, so don't want to bore you with it again. But just wanted to mention he scores a brace in this game. So just wanted to kind of glaze him for a little bit and just how good of form he's in. Also, you mentioned Spurs is 5 points, behind them. Well, they had a tale of 2 halves against Crystal Palace. A 0-0 first half, very boring, not many chances. But then this match absolutely sprung to life with 4 goals in the second half, starting off with an Eze wonder goal off a free kick.
Yeah, you're starting to see Paul Glasner and his style of play. Of course, he's now had a little bit more time with this team at Crystal Palace. And so he's starting to kind of get shape, and they're going to be a good side. And we've talked about before, if Eze and Olise are healthy, this is an entirely different squad than when they're out. Of course, they have not been healthy most of the season, but Spurs were definitely the better team here, and they showed it in the second half, like you mentioned. We've always talked about, though, you do expect Spurs to give up opportunities and chances just the way that Ange wants to play. And so luckily they're playing against a Crystal Palace team that doesn't have the firepower that could really, really hurt them. And of course, Jin-Ming Son gets a really nice goal there as well to kind of settle things down for Spurs. And now they're, like I said, between them and Villa, it's a little bit of a gap. And so Spurs kind of feels nice in their little 5th or 6th place, depending on if United can catch them. I don't foresee that happening, being 6 points clear of them. And so you're just kind of looking at Spurs now at this point to get the project started, understanding what they need going forward, gives Ange a little bit more time to get some players rotated in throughout the rest of the season, understand his roster, who he has available, what he needs to add in the summer, and still kind of secure a place in European football. If things go awry and for Villa and you can sneak into that 4th spot, fantastic. But I think for now you're looking at a pretty safe spot in 5th and getting Europa League, which for Spurs is probably a good opportunity for a trophy next year, more so than Champions League.
Absolutely. And just one other thing from this match, Brennan Johnson's substitution coming on made the difference. So, praise to Ange for making that substitution. And then Brennan Johnson, well done, 2 assists, completely, started that comeback, and that first assist that he had just would not stop. He just, ball kept ricocheting between defenders, just kept going, and then squared it across for, I believe it was Timo Werner, to open up the scoring for Spurs to tie it up. So wanted to give Brennan Johnson a shout out. And just a tiny wrinkle here, Spurs do have a game in hand on Villa. It is against your Chelsea, so a big rivalry game, so that I wouldn't call that 3 points by any means, but it is Chelsea at the same time, so you never know. But if they did win that game, then they would be only 2 points behind Villa. So it's still not out of the question, but it really, that extra game, whenever it is scheduled, will be a very interesting fixture just for how Champions League versus Europa League ball is going to end up here. On the other hand, I wanted to just kind of quickly touch on a couple other games that happened. I thought Fulham beating Brighton handily without Palhinha, Raul Jimenez, just to name a few, 3-0. Is the De Zerbi luster kind of coming off this Brighton team, or is Brighton just so injured? And then, like you said, the European competitions, is that really affecting them as of now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of the above. Of course, Matoma being hurt, and we saw that impact in the midweek too at the cup level, losing to Wolves in the FA Cup as well. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think De Zerbi needs some. They lost a lot of pieces in the summer as well, which people need to remember. McAllister, Caicedo, regardless how Caicedo is playing at Chelsea, he was a force for Brighton last season. And then you mentioned some of the injuries. Stupinian hasn't been consistently healthy this year either. Ferguson has not been playing. Evan Ferguson hasn't been in great form of late. So, I think there's a lot of factors here. I think Brighton are probably right where they need to be in the table, to be honest. And, I think they're fighting for that Conference League spot, or maybe that last Europa League spot with the likes of West Ham and Manchester United. So I think they're kind of right where they expected to be. They do have young talent coming through the system. And so I think De Zerbi's fine unless he jumps ship to a different job, which obviously there's a lot of openings, and he's certainly a high candidate with a lot of interest given the way he's set up Brighton and the way that they play. And we'll see what happens going forward. But I think given everything that happened this year for Brighton, I wouldn't have expected them any other place on the table, or not too much difference, to be honest.
I think that's a very fair take. So I'm gonna side on you with this one. Another game that I thought was interesting, just based off the managers, a Deitch and Moyes game. I mean, two old school managers here. West Ham ended up winning 3-1. Are we still, even with the points deduction and then adding another 4 points back, are we still worried about Everton and their fate for the Premier League?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've been pretty harsh on Everton all season, and it hasn't changed because they got 6 points or 4 points back. They're bad. They're very bad. And so if you're an Everton fan, you're not really comfortable quite yet. We touched on some of the games that Luton has, and one of those games is Everton at home. So that's another big game. And if Luton get anything out of those 5 or 6 games that I mentioned, I'm not sure if Everton can get enough points. And we're getting close to that season mark where I'm curious what you think. Let's take out Burnley and check out Sheffield from the conversation. They're down. What is the number in your opinion? That's safe this season. We're currently at 20 for Luton right now. I mean, if Luton can get to 30, are they safe? Does that mean can Everton get 5 more points from here on out? I mean, that's kind of where you're doing your math now is what is the number that Luton needs to get to, and can Everton catch that or match it?
Yeah, Everton have to play United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal on the final day. So,
and they're not comfortable against anybody. Against Palace, we saw how bad they were. Brentford can beat them. I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't know if they can get to 35 points or 33 points and clear themselves from that gap. I mean, that's a big number for Luton to get 13 points from here. But if they can get, like I said, 10 points, that's a really tight race.
Really just depends on the second charges of FFP, to be honest. So we'll see kind of how that plays. If you don't know who Men in Blazers is, definitely recommend you follow them. But Raj, an Everton fan, made one of the funniest videos I've ever seen when it came to the third West Ham goal. So I highly encourage you to go watch that. It made me cackle, I guess you could say. Speaking of wonder goals, just wanted to throw that out there. Johan Vissa, take a bow with his nice bike. We don't have to dive into that game because it's a feel-good Sunday, and we don't want to ruin your vibe today. So I'm not going to make you unpack.
Pretty bad second half. Just a bad
Chelsea.
Second half.
So not sorry about that, but I'm going to go ahead and spare you. Just other, things that went down. Newcastle beat Wolves 3-0. I think that's the only one we really haven't covered. Oh, Bournemouth got a huge win we talked about. They've been winless in 8. They were able to bounce back against the terrible Burnley. So those are the other results that happened. But let's go ahead and pivot to Germany. Leverkusen, 10 points now from Bayern with their win over Cologne. I have never seen outside backs have this much of a say in a team's goal scoring output before. Grimaldo and Frimpong both on the score sheet. Again, it's just remarkable.
It is. I mean, they play.
They play the right wing back. They play very high.
Yeah. And so it's a little different to look at it that way versus traditional fullbacks. And obviously they have the most possession in most games that they're playing. So they have the opportunity to go forward. They have the opportunity to go forward more so than if they're, kind of on the defensive or counter attacking. But I mean, Grimaldo's left foot, it might be one of the best left foots in the game. Just what he does consistently week in, week out, free kicks, open play goals. You mentioned Frimpong, who's been, stellar down the right-hand side. It'll be interesting, Daniel, to see if both of those guys stay next year or who picks them up. We talked about it a few weeks ago in offline about Frimpong maybe going to Bayern Munich. They could use a right winger or a right wing back, depending on how that new manager that's going to go in wants to play. And it's very typical for Bayern to steal the best players in the Bundesliga. And those two are obviously up there. Of course, Florian Wirtz, how can you not talk about Bayer Leverkusen without talking about him? Again, continues to just shine at 20 years old. And, you just wonder where he's going to end up and how high his ceiling is. So this team is again, it's in their hands. And it's really becoming not in their hands and almost Bayern giving it to them as they continue to drop points against teams that you would not expect them to drop points against. Of course, Bayern need to keep winning, but they seem to be doing that. And you count that with Bayern dropping points against a Freiburg. Bob's your uncle. Give him the trophy now.
Bob's your uncle. Never heard that one before. Just wanted to read a tweet by Derek Ray, who's very big into the Bundesliga atmosphere. He says
probably
right now,
maybe one of the most connected guys in the Bundesliga, honestly.
I think he works for ESPN Plus as well. So you probably hear his voice when you listen and tune into Bundesliga games if you're an American. But he says right now, Leverkusen are in position to complete one of the most sensational seasons ever. Their points total is amongst the highest in history. One of the best teams in Europe anywhere in their current glide. They're still unbeaten in like 30 plus. And instead of just shelling out millions and millions of dollars, they cleverly built a squad rather than pure cash, which most teams tried. So I wanted to read that tweet because I think you could not sum up Bayer Leverkusen better than how he did. So I just wanted to mention that. But we've talked about Bayer. You mentioned Bayern handing Bayer the trophy, which I think is still a little harsh. But Bayern do, like you said, tied to Freiburg 2-2. I mean, golly, they are. I haven't seen Bayern play this poorly in a season for feels like a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, I predicted 2-0 Freiburg on the show. So I was close. They got the two goals. Yeah. They were up 1-0 as well on Bayern. Bayern had to come back. Of course, Jamal Musiala had a wonder goal, that he just kind of took upon himself and created. Kids keep forgetting that he's only 20 years old as well. Another absolute sensational talent in the Bundesliga. This team has been very disappointing this season, but he's been one of the key shining moments for them. There's pieces on this team. Harry Kane's got 27 goals, I think it is, in 24 games. There's elements here that you just wonder where the missing link is or what's the cause of these problems for Bayern Munich. Of course, in the back, they've been very leaky. Midfield with Goretzka and Kimmich not getting consistent minutes or comfortability with Tuchel and his system. It just feels like it's inevitable. And of course it is inevitable with him announcing that he's not returning next season. But, if things go wrong on Wednesday or Tuesday, I believe they play Tuesday, he's out even sooner. It just feels like that's the link here that has been the problem the whole time. And even last year when he came in and took over for Nagelsmann, they didn't play that great. They kind of squeaked by. Of course, Borussia Dortmund hands them the trophy on the last day, losing or drawing to Mainz at home. But it wasn't a very fun Bayern Munich to watch, and they continue that this season. So it's been really disappointing, of course. And, you just wanted to see a good title race. If you're the neutral after 11 or 12 seasons of Bayern Munich winning it, you're happy to see a new team win it, of course, but you would have liked it to have been a little bit more competitive versus a 10-point gap right now. And I know you said it's a little bit still early. I was under the camp that it was early for me. Now it's over. And kind of, I feel like it's almost inevitable that the Meisterschalen will end up in Bayern this year.
Absolutely. And I tweeted out on the account because Matisse Tell, I've been calling for him every single week to start and
great
play
goal
more
too,
games,
by the way.
And he goes and doesn't respond to my tweet per se, but he goes and scores an absolute worldie to open up the scoring there. So play him every single game, play Musial every single game, play Pavlovic every single game. Those three players, your young players, that's your new core. Screw everyone else. Figure it out. Obviously, Harry Kane as well. But they at least know that they have players that they can look forward to in the future, and they're just going to have to regroup a lot this summer. Now,
they will, by the way, just to put a finer point on it. It's Bayern Munich. Sure. They'll be fine next season.
No doubt. But I wanted to mention Stuttgart, who get a huge away win versus Wolfsburg. They're 4 points behind Bayern right now. Only 4 points. I think that's very interesting. Obviously, Dortmund is 10 points back, so that doesn't seem very likely to catch up. But Stuttgart's hot right now. I mean, Guirassy, has scored a brace, but he has 20 goals this season. Should we reevaluate who's going to get second at this stage, or do you think Bayern are going to just have enough juice to kind of finish the season, or are they just going to limp off into third?
It's a strange season. So normally I would say yes, they have the juice, but they might limp into third and they'd be comfortable with that as much as they can be. There's really nothing they can do. For Bayern Munich, it's win or nothing really for most seasons. And so if they finish third, I don't know if it really changes anything as if they finish second. Financially, it doesn't make any difference to them. You don't get into a different cup like in LaLiga if you finish second versus third. They're still going to be in Champions League. I could see Stuttgart snagging second place. It would be a story.
Wonderful story.
But it also, I could see Bayern Munich also still finding a way to continue that run of finishing second. I don't know when the last time they finished or where they finished when Borussia Dortmund won the title 11 years ago. I'm sure it was second, but either way, if you're Bayern Munich, you're fine if you finish second or third, just because in that room, winning is all that matters for them.
No doubt. Now, just quickly to cover, Dortmund do beat Union Berlin to get back on track. They're getting healthier and healthier, so keep an eye out on them. They're 6 points from Stuttgart currently, and then Leipzig crush Bochum.
That's a big race, though. It's a big race. 1 point between those two for Champions League.
Exactly. So, Leipzig do concede first, but they react well. Simmons continues just to have a wonderful season. 1 point from Dortmund. So it seems like Leipzig and Dortmund are going to really duke it out. Maybe Stuttgart can be thrown in there if they kind of have a couple matches of bad form. But it's really going to be up to Dortmund and Leipzig to decide who's going to be in the Champions League spot. And right now it's a little too early, or I just don't feel comfortable making a call on that. Do you?
I feel Dortmund have enough. I'm not comfortable with Marco Rose, even though I took them to be the winner of the league at the beginning of the season. Call me crazy for that one. I admit that. But I do think Terzic has just enough firepower to get over the line. I don't think that long term, and we've talked about it, that Terzic is the guy for Borussia Dortmund, but I think this season to get them to fourth, I think there's just enough in the tank. And it's a big deal for them to finish in the way that they're modeled and the way that they play. Borussia Dortmund needs to be in the Champions League year in, year out. And so, it'll be interesting, but I do think they hang on just enough. And then, like you said, similar to Premier League with those guys that we talked about between fourth and fifth and potentially sixth, if Stuttgart slip here or there, can those guys jump Borussia Dortmund and Leipzig, jump them? Who knows? But I still feel there's enough there for Stuttgart to keep in this Champions League spot.
Yeah, and a couple other storylines I wanted to hit on real quick. Darmstadt loses 6-0 to Augsburg, who is not very good either. What a disgraceful performance. It was like 5-0 by the 35th minute. I don't think I've ever seen as bad personal errors as I did in this match. So just disgusting. They're going to go down very quickly. So no doubt on that. And then Heidenheim's keeper had one of the most unluckiest own goals I've ever seen. The defender passed it back, and as he goes to hack it up, the ball takes a quick nod right over his foot into the goal. So that's got to be one of the most unluckiest things to happen to a keeper I've seen in recent memory. So I wanted to touch on that. But we mentioned in the intro, Madrid opens up a little bit of light for Girona, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid with a draw here to Valencia. They came back from 2-0 down, and then there was absolute scenes in extra time as the referee called the game as a cross went into the box and Jude Bellingham scores, making it no goal and a draw. I would love to hear your take on this.
I have a lot of thoughts, and I've been having a back and forth with a friend of mine earlier today who thinks I'm out of my mind on this one. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The red card should be appealed. That should be repealed. Excuse me. It will be appealed by Real Madrid if it hasn't already. I think it has been this morning, and so I think that should be rescinded. There's no need for that red card to happen. I don't think. Jude Bellingham was yelling anything at the ref and more at the situation. If you look at the way things broke down and it's not necessary. Now, the discussion about the actual call itself and how that played out, it's a tricky one because the ref blew the whistle, and so the game is over. It's kind of that simple. But I understand that there's more ramifications to that and the way things played out and the way it evolved into a goal after it and all that jazz. It really is that simple that the ref blew the whistle and ultimately the game is over. You look at other sports, and I understand that soccer, football is a little different than other sports where there's a clock, and once the clock goes to zero, that you can still keep going. In basketball, hockey, when it hits zeros, if the ball does not go through the net before 0-0, if the puck doesn't cross the line, it's not a goal. In this instance, the ref blew his whistle. That is the official way of ruling the game over or completed. So in that sense, simplistically, yes, there's nothing wrong with the call. Now, I understand, like I said, you have to look at the factor. It was 97 or it was +7 when they were in the 98th and 30. There was some extra time that should have been added on for VAR check or yellow cards handed out, whatever the decision was. That really doesn't play into this, though. And again, if you're looking at it just simplistically, the ref blew his whistle, and that's really what it boils down to. And I know everyone's going to say, well, it was in the play of the action. You don't blow the whistle at the end of or during action. He can blow his whistle whenever he wants. He's the ref. And at the end of the day, that's my view on it. But I do understand both sides of it because I've played the game, and when that happens, you're furious. You can't believe it. You're in the box, or you're just outside the box.
It felt like right as he was crossing it, he blew it, which is a tough time to decide the blow.
And so I get that. I do get it. But at the end of the day, that's the rules that we play by. That's what the rules that all these players have played their entire careers by. So
yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I also think that Madrid has come across some very favorable referee decisions throughout the season, historically speaking. So, this one probably wasn't the worst thing that could possibly happen. They still got a draw at the end of the day. But obviously, when you see the ball go in the net seconds later after the call, that's going to hurt for sure. So when did Glees cover that? I thought you covered that pretty eloquently, Matt, so I can't disagree. But I wanted to get to Girona, off a big loss. I was singing their praises last week, but now they go and lose to Mallorca. But Mallorca, what a week it's been for them. They go to the Copa del Rey finals, beating Real Sociedad, punching above their weight, and then they go. This could be a huge letdown spot for them after emotional midweek, and they beat Girona, who is challenging Barcelona, Real Madrid, and everyone else for Champions League spot. What a week.
Yeah, of course, Mallorca beat Girona as well in Copa del Rey just before this. So twice now they beat Girona. And so this is, again, I don't know where they found this form. It's great to see. Of course, they get an early goal and then kind of hang on for dear life, to be honest. Girona threw, everything in the kitchen sink to try and get the point here. They played well, and Mallorca just hung on. And again, you saw the game afterwards, Barcelona and Bilbao play. I'll use Bilbao just because sometimes I get a little tripped up with the different athletic clubs. The draw is not the best result for Girona, just because of how tight the table is now going to get. We talked about how if they continue to lose, they could free fall down out of the top 4, which they've been, of course, at the top or within the top 4 all season long. So now, you look at the table, Bilbao is only 9 points away from Girona. Of course, Barcelona 1 point behind, Atleti 4 points behind. And so this table, aside from Real Madrid, who we touched on, it has opened the door slightly. Now only 7 points clear of Barcelona, 8 points, excuse me. I can't do math with the game. And, they still play each other. We've talked about El Clasico. The way that this could work out for Girona, if you're concerned, or the way I'm looking at it potentially, is that those 3 teams, Barcelona, Atleti, and Bilbao, get really tight, and you slip as Girona, and you get jumped by all 3. So that would be my concern. And the more points that you drop against a team like Mallorca, that's really potentially what could happen. And probably where they sit. They sat last year, they finished 9th. Mallorca jumped them on the last day of the season to get, ahead of them in the table. So again, that's kind of where I've envisioned Girona all season. It was a great story, but I still think there's enough time for them to slip a little bit further. And you saw that the way they played today. They just weren't the same team that they have been throughout the course of the season. And that's the main concern, is that the magic kind of has worn off a little bit.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they can at least just keep pace with the top 4 and get a Champions League spot, which would still be absolutely fantastic. So, Stuttgart and Girona are kind of our darlings here on the show right now, just punching above their weight, and we'll see if they can keep it up. Now, Barcelona, Bilbao just recently finished up. Stop me if you've heard me say this before, but both De Jong and Pedri are injured. Not good for Barcelona at all. And this game with those injuries became very boring very fast.
Yeah, very boring. Of course, the injuries are huge. You're worried about Pedri again, because this is just, he's 21 years old and continue. You forget he's only 21 years old, by the way. And, another quad injury, it looks like, from the way that he kind of was pulled up and just kind of walked off the field. You feel for the kid because he's tried so hard to come back, and then he gets another setback. And so you just wonder in his head, what can I do to fix this or get over this? Whether or not it's a long-term injury, you got to play him safe with him. And then Frankie de Jong lands awkwardly and rolls his ankle. My main concern that I don't know if anyone talked about was that the defender also kind of extended the leg, the way that the foot fell on at first. So it wasn't just a rolled ankle. It kind of looked like the muscle extends and then it rolls. So you just wonder if, I'm not a doctor, but a high ankle sprain for sure. A high ankle sprain looks very likely there. And those are usually, a little bit longer time than just a rolled ankle, as I've done them, and I'm sure you've done them playing. So it was a pretty boring game. Otherwise, Lewandowski didn't look good. Rafinha was pretty ho-hum. If he did anything, to be honest, João Felix, when he came on, was pretty poor. This team is so strange, Daniel, and we've talked about it all season. Just they don't look like the old Barcelonas. And so even though we're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're only 8 points behind Madrid, and maybe they have an outside shot at this, it's very unlikely. And this was just a really boring watch, but a good performance for Bilbao, who's had a very long week emotionally and just on the field. So a good point for them at home.
Absolutely. And just to get to, fourth place, Atletico Madrid get a much needed win against Betis after a dreadful week and a half, I'd say. 2 wins in 6 is not very ideal for Simeone's men. They're missing Griezmann pretty bad, but to get a win against a high-flying Betis is a big result here for the La Liga table. One last question for La Liga I wanted to pose to you is the Europe, like places kind of decided with Betis in that Europa Conference League spot, or do you think Real Sociedad, maybe having I don't know, just a little bit of Champions League and other fixtures kind of being lined up, do you think they'll be able to catch up to Betis soon?
I think the best thing that could happen for Real Sociedad on Tuesday, they're already playing again, is they lose to PSG and get knocked out. They're not going to win. They're not going to win Champions League. no matter what. Of course, you want to keep going. There's financial ramifications if you get to the next round, no doubt about that. But they're not going to win it. And so from that lens, if they get knocked out now, they still have an outside shot of catching Betis. Of course, they're only 2 points back. Betis losing today against Atleti was not helpful for Betis's cause. I do think that Sociedad, the longer they stay in multiple competitions, of course, they lost to Mallorca in the Copa del Rey as well, and they're just going to run out of gas. But it's a tight race there. I mean, two points. That's really the only spot, because Betis 8 points behind Bilbao is probably not going to happen. So you're really looking at a 2-horse race. Las Palmas are not far behind, and neither is Valencia. But yeah, I mean, long story short, I do think Betis sneaks into that last spot, but Sociedad has the players. They can do it if they can just find a way.
Absolutely. To go to Serie A, Inter do play tomorrow against Genoa, but that kind of first place is all wrapped up. But Milan do beat Lazio at the death on Friday. 3 red cards in this match. You would thought they were playing WWE, the video game, and not football on a pitch, with just how, all the melees going back and forth. But that was a big win for Pioli's men. I thought Lazio's players completely lost their heads, especially at the end. And, one of the biggest storylines on this pod, at least, is substitutes. And Pioli has gained the most points from substitutes off the bench this year in Serie A to date, with Okafor scoring the winner here. And now they're only 2 points from Juventus, who we'll get to in a second, but as they drop points today.
Yeah, I mean, Lazio are tough. They, again, they play midweek. Was that their focus? A lot of these teams you're looking at that. You have to look at it that way too, right? Because there's some bigger initiatives for some of these teams. Of course, Lazio in 9th place is really not going to do much in LaLiga. And so that, they can really kind of focus on Bayern Munich. If they advance, that's a big deal for them. Again, financially, with everything that happens in Italy, if you're not aware, Italian teams have been very, very stingy on finances of late, just because a lot of the teams are not making money. It was a pretty big initiative by the federation for them not to be, spending money left and right, like the Reals and Barcelona. So if they were to advance, not only is it a big, scalp that they would get for knocking out Bayern, but it's a big financial boost to their revenue. And then you look at them kind of sitting in that, maybe the ceiling for them is 6th, 6 points behind Atalanta now. So that, to me, that's kind of where Milan took advantage of it. Again, we've talked about how they're only 1 point behind Juventus, and can they catch them for second place? And kind of, there's no shot at Inter, 13 points behind, with Inter have a game to play. So yeah, this was kind of one of those games that you really didn't expect too much, just because both teams don't have too much to play for. And, Milan gets it because they have more talent.
Absolutely. Juventus, we mentioned, lost to Napoli. Napoli are kind of getting hot. They might be a little bit back. They looked reinvigorated today under their new manager, Calzona. It was a crazy game. Juventus did lack the cutting edge. They missed multiple chances. But it was all decided when Osimhen was fouled inside the box. Did not convert the pen, but Raspadori came in and finished it off to win the match. And Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen continue to carry Napoli even a season after they've won the title. But that's just a testament to those two players, and I'm looking forward to see where they're going to end up in the summer.
Yeah, we touched on it. I mean, Juve is just such a hard watch, and Allegri ball is really difficult. Weston McKennie, of course, being out with the dislocated shoulder. Vlahovic didn't have his partner in crime up top, but they gave him a chance. You mentioned the PK that changed the game, and now, Juventus is a game away from really kind of making this season be more of a disappointment for them than it should have been. Not that they probably were going to win the league, but they had a chance, an outside shot about a month ago, right, where it was only 4 or 5 points, and now all of a sudden the gap is 12 with a game in hand for Inter, who play tomorrow against Genoa, and so that could be even a 15-point lead. If you're Napoli, too little, too late. Unfortunately, three managers in the season, this talent that we've talked about, and just the way that they hung the hangover, the timing runs out on that. still a big game against Barcelona that they could advance in the Champions League for, again, similar to Nap to Lazio, kind of where their head is at for this point, because they do have the talent to go and make a little bit of a run in the Champions League, maybe get to a quarterfinal or a semifinal, which would be a big deal for them. And but I don't foresee them getting up to Bologna in fourth. Maybe they can catch Roma in fifth, but that's really the height for them.
You mentioned Bologna. They actually deal a huge blow to Atalanta, who remain fourth in sixth place. Bologna are unbeaten in 7 matches. They've had a gauntlet of a stretch in those 7 matches. They're 4 points ahead of Roma and 5 points behind Milan. I won't talk about it too much because I've talked about them a lot on recent shows, but Thiago Motta with Jonathan Zerski and Lewis Ferguson are just steamrolling Serie A right now, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. Now, Roma as well, that I mentioned, they take care of business with a Monza win. And I happen to notice that Lukaku now has scored double digits in 11 straight seasons. He's 30 years old. So from 19 years old to 30, he's bagged double-digit seasons. That is wild for me, but I mean, he's definitely going to go down as one of the better strikers of this generation. And they also have, played 10 matches and only lost 1 of their last 10. So De Rossi ball is clicking for sure. Now, just wanted to quickly touch on the rest of the world. PSG, Monaco tie in the Ligue 1. And Mbappe gets hooked at halftime, probably to rest for the UCL match, but he goes and doesn't sit on the bench. He goes and sits with his entourage and his mother in the stands. As a French fan, as a PSG fan, how do you feel about that action?
The whole thing is strange, to be quite honest. Luis Enrique said that the reason why we took him off is because we have to get to know how to play without him going forward. And if anyone knows Luis Enrique, he does his own thing. He kind of beats to his own drum, does what he wants. No one's going to tell him what to do. But it's still a weird one that a player gets pulled and goes and sits in the stands. Would have liked to have seen him play a little bit harder, maybe had a little bit of sweat and kind of not want to sit next to his family, although they obviously have showers and stuff in the locker room. But a weird dynamic. Of course, he's checked out at this point. They're going to win the league. So to Luis Enrique's point, otherwise, if they're not competing for the Champions League, kind of give some new guys a chance to shine and see what they have. And again, he's gone. And if things get a little tighter in the league, then you bring him in and you probably get 3 points and advance. But 10 points clear in the 10 plus points clear in the league. Let him do what he wants. That's kind of, for me, he's off, he's moving. That's the end of the Mbappe story in Paris.
Yeah, 2nd through 5th place is separated by 4 points. So we'll keep an eye, or 5 points. So we'll keep an eye on kind of who is going to be getting closer to those UCL spots in another episode. But just another big game that happened around the world. PSV and Feyenoord drew 2-2. So that was a surprising fixture for me. I thought PSV would definitely win that game at home. So that was a bit surprising. And there was one more that I wanted to mention here. Porto beat Benfica 5-0 today. And Benfica just came off a loss to Sporting Lisbon in the Portuguese Cup. So Benfica's fumbling a little bit. We'll see if they bounce back in Europa League, which we're going to preview in a second. You ready for previews? I don't have a nap game for you.
There's definitely a nap game in there. I'm sure of it. I'm sure there's one that you found somehow.
Only one way to find out, Matt. Let's get into
it. Let's do it.
We'll go over UCL slate first. Bayern, Lazio. Who do you think?
Aggregate right now is 1-0 Lazio going into this one.
At Bayern as well.
At Bayern as well. Man, this is hard. 1-0 Bayern in the game, and they advance on penalties.
Wow. Okay. So you think Lazio goes kind of bold here. I like it. I'm going to go Bayern 1-0 win. No, 1-0 win, and then they win in extra time to make it 2-1. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I have the same. I just have them in penalties. I have it all the way to penalties. But yeah, same thing.
Leipzig host Madrid, who is down, I think, 1-0 right now. I'm going to have to check that just to make sure the aggregate
Yeah, either way, it doesn't matter. I think Real Madrid have enough firepower, and they're going to be pissed off after the way that this finished yesterday in the league. So probably 2-0 win for Madrid, even though it's on the road.
I take that back. They are hosting Leipzig, so that changes things.
Either way, they're still going to win it.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 here at home. City play Copenhagen at home with a 3-1 aggregate. Do they rest for Liverpool, or do they go ahead and make sure this draw is done and dusted?
This draw is already done and dusted, so I don't think it matters if they rest players here. It's at home. They're still going to win 2-0, probably at minimum. But this is at 3-1. This is pretty much already over.
Gotcha. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-2 game, but City will win. Sporting versus Atalanta, a great Europa League match here.
Sporting. I'll take Sporting in this one. Start of this leg of games, and so I don't have much to add to that other than Sporting.
Scoreline.
2-0.
I'm going to go 3-2 Sporting win as well. Marseille versus Villarreal, another great Europa League matchup.
Villarreal scored 5 today against Granada. I think
they did Marseille.
2. Yeah, that's true. Still, I'll take Villarreal 2-1.
I'm going to say Marseille win this 2-1. Opposite score lines, but same result here. Roma, Brighton.
Roma, 1-0. That's the nap game, by the way. The way Brighton's playing.
Going 2-0, Roma win here. And then for the Europa Conference League, Ajax versus Aston Villa at Ajax.
Aston Villa 2-1.
I'm going to go Aston Villa 3-1 at Ajax. A bold game right there. But that is the end of the prediction show. Before you leave, if you're still listening, thank you so much. Don't forget to go to our YouTube, subscribe, like the videos we have coming out. I will be dropping XI of the week on Tuesday. The betting show has been postponed to tomorrow because we're still waiting on 2 legs of the parlay, so that will come out Monday night. Follow the full-time roundup on X. Like, interact with us. We'd love to hear from you what you think we missed, what you want us to talk about.
Artlist.io.
All streaming platforms. So rating 5-star and download all episodes so we can get some good metrics. Thank you again for listening and enjoy the champion.